I have been given this great privilege of speaking to you, this distinguished group of retirees. And on behalf of the Lexington District 1 Board, I want to express to you our extreme thanks for who you are and what you have individually and collectively done for this district, our students, their families, the community, the state of South Carolina, and beyond. As a matter of fact, there are no words that are sufficient to truly express this thanks or to characterize adequately the significance of your contributions and achievements. Yet I've been tasked somehow to say something meaningful, something that you can take with you on your new journey into retirement, something that will cause you to reflect on a job well done. And I'll tell you, to create a pearl of great price for this group in words is a woefully insufficient exchange for the pearls that you leave behind, strewn over so many years and so many lives. But I've been asked to speak to you, and that is what I will do. You see, George Carlin said that if we ever had a chance to revisit the old home place, those places where you and I grew up, there was only one way that the visit would ever be truly meaningful to us. He said when we visit the house where we grew up or our old elementary school, we should get down on our knees and walk around, because that's the perspective from which we saw that house or that school as a child. We were younger. We were smaller. We were shorter. We had to stand on chairs or at least on tiptoe to look out the windows. The dining room table and the kitchen counters were at eye level for us. We had to reach up to open doors. And adults were giants, physically and spiritually, for us. And George Carlin was right about this. The only way to revisit the old home place and enjoy and savor the memories is to do it as closely as possible to the perspective of a child. That child you were when you lived there. And so for a few moments tonight, I'm going to ask you to revisit your careers, the old home place of your vocation, by getting down on your knees. So I'd like for you to get down on your knees. You can do this mentally, by the way. It'll be perfectly fine. I want you to get down on your knees and look at your career, your accomplishments, not as you may remember them, but through the eyes of the students whom you served. And tonight, since there are not too many of them here, we'll just say through the eyes of the children. During your careers, working with children, you taught them to look up. Let's face it, they had to. You were taller than they were. But there was more to looking up than just a dynamic of height. They looked up to you as a role model, someone who knew about the world, someone who could help them make sense out of math problems, someone who could help them understand in history class how and why people throughout history could be so kind and so cruel at the same time. They looked to you as someone who knew how to handle any situation with grace, integrity, and kindness. And even when they grew physically and could look you eye to eye, they were still looking up to you because they trusted you, they loved you, they knew you would never steer them wrong. You were their teachers, their bus drivers, their counselors, their coaches, their therapists, their nutritionists, their custodial engineers. You were the ones that had the answers in a world full of riddles, and you did not disappoint them. They looked up to you. They still do. During your careers, and no matter what your specific role, you were all educators. You taught children to reach out. Again, They had to. They were little. They needed to hold someone's hand, literally and figuratively, in so many situations. They needed to hold the hand of a school nurse when they weren't feeling well. They needed you to hold their hand at times as they struggled to make it to the cafeteria undistracted. They needed to reach out to you in order to help them up those steep bus steps. They reached out to your minds in order that theirs might be shaped and enlightened and challenged. They reached out for the tender but firm hands of the therapists who taught them that a special need can be transformed into capability. They reached out to you to show them that there was no limit to who they might become or what they might accomplish. They reached out to you to help them find the linguist, the musician, the athlete, the artist, the engineer, the doctor, the nurse, the mathematician, the complete person that resided within them. And even when they didn't need to hold your hand anymore, they still reached out to you to say, "Thank you. I love you. You have made a difference in my life." They reached out to you, and you taught them to reach out to others with the academic lessons and the life lessons that you taught them. You taught our children to reach out. During your careers, you also taught our children to walk beside you. What made you all the great educators that you are is the fact that you never stopped learning. While you were inspiring our children to be the best they can be and to learn all that they can learn, you were walking beside them, becoming the best that you could be and learning all that you could learn. And the children saw that you were not afraid to learn and you were not scared to grow. Changes can be very frightening. New perspectives that challenge who we are and what we believe can be scary propositions. But growth always comes with the challenge. The psalmist in the most familiar of psalms said that even in the valley of the shadow of death, there was no fear. Why? Because God was with him, walking beside him. Learning is always a death of sorts, but it is one that brings new life. Our children have not feared to be challenged and have not feared to grow because you have walked beside them, and you have not been afraid to be challenged, and you have not been afraid to grow. Our children have seen that in you, and they have seen how you walk beside them in growth, learning, and enlightenment. And though they always looked up to you and reached out to you, they loved the fact that in terms of growth and the travels associated with the journey of learning, you were not afraid to be their peers. The children walked beside you as you grew, as you continued to become throughout your careers. And finally tonight, during your careers, you taught our children to let go. As they looked up to you, reached out to you, walked beside you, both you and the children knew that there would come a time when you both would have to let go. And that may be the hardest part of this perspective tonight. But we know that the final phase of learning is letting the transfer take place, which allows the student, thoroughly prepared, to stand on his or her own 2 feet and to move forward without us. And so many times in your careers as educators, you have seen those wonderful students, those wonderful children move beyond your direct influence to achieve new heights, to accept new challenges, to continue to become. And so many times you watched from afar as they used the foundations that you helped them put down to construct the reality of their dreams. And though letting go was hard for you and them, you had the courage to let the children, the students, go where their dreams might take them. And I promise you that the children never forgot you or what you did for them. or the part that you played in building and realizing their dreams. So, this is what your career looks like from the perspective of a child. This is what your career looks like on your knees. And as you reflect in the days ahead on what your life's work has meant, ponder these things and mentally give yourself a hug and imagine it as the hug of a child who loves you because you taught that child to look up, reach out, walk beside, and let go. And in your days of retirement, be thankful for what you have done. And don't be afraid in your new journeys and your new adventures to approach life on your knees with the perspective of a child by continuing to look up, reach out, walk beside, and let go. Thank you so much for what you've done for Lexington District 1. Thank you.